Hey, gods and goddesses, let's talk about the major aspects in astrology. Let's talk about the minor ones as well. Like just because, let's just talk about the minor and major aspects in astrology. And I also wanted to go over the really huge one where we have the grand trine and also the grand cross, which is known as, the grand square as well. But yes, let's talk about the major aspects because these are very important because these refer to the angular relationships that we experience between planets, points in our charts. These indicate, like aspects in astrology, indicate how energies interact with each other, whether they blend together effortlessly, whether they blend together not at all, whether it's like not working, or whether it's creating tension, whether it's this underlining dialogue, because aspects are truly like underlining dialogue between different points of like your personality, of your childhood talking to you, of what's guiding you, of your experiences, of your responses to your life, your emotions. These aspects are truly important when it comes to describing or indicating anything within your chart. And let's just start off with the one that I think is most powerful, that I think at least one of us that's listening to this video has, which is a conjunction. And so the conjunction is a very, very powerful aspect. And honestly, the conjunction is when we have two planets that are within 10 degrees of each other. An exact conjunction is when they are that at the exact degree. And these are merging two planets together and they're blending forces. This is very powerful. A conjunction is a very powerful, you know, um, combination that's very intent and very, very focused. So whatever you have conjunctions in your chart, you this is intensified energy. This is a very, very common one, a conjunction, and very, very potent too, because a conjunction is very powerful. Anytime planets are at the exact degree, you cannot not hear them. They are very, very adamant in your development in your life in some type of way. Okay, and let's move to the next one, the sextile. Sextile is actually going to show this on the screen, but obviously sextile is a 60 degrees, so each um each house is made up of 30 degrees in our natal chart, right? And so the sextile is a 60 degrees. So these are when planets are easily working together because they're pulling from each other. They have opportunities to like create some type of creative energy, some type of harmony. You can act upon um these planets when you have a sextile, if that makes sense, because they're pulling from each other. You're pulling from different areas of your chart, but in a positive angle, if that makes sense. And then we're moving on to the square. So when we're talking about the square, this is a 90-degree angle. And so these are three houses apart. And when we're talking about a square is creating friction, a square is creating tension. A square, we're talking about just a regular square. So this is pushing you towards growth in some type of way, very uncomfortable. It's like literally feeling the pressure until you evolve when you have a square in your chart. Um, that one is just pushing you towards growth is the square for real. And then we have the trine. Okay, I like the trine. Everyone likes the trine, especially if it's a grand trine, but I'm not talking about the grand trine right now. I'm talking about just the trine. The trine is 120 degrees apart, right? This is a blessing type of energy because these are blending together. These are like naturally coming together, natural talent. It's easily working together, easy synergy. But I wouldn't get too comfortable when we have that trining energy, just because like you can't become so naturally. I mean, obviously you could become naturally good in your in your natural talent, but when things are just easily blending together, it's almost like you don't put in that much effort. So with trines, I will say that it does work well, yes, but you definitely have to put in some type of effort because you don't want to get too comfortable when you have trines and think things are just gonna work. So let's talk about oppositions, right? This is opposition is it's 180 degrees apart. So um they are directly across from each other. And these ones, oppositions are we are always experiencing our opposition. It's obviously always nice to know what type of opposition that you're going to be experiencing, obviously, right? Let's say, I'm a Leo sun sign, my opposition sign is Aquarius. I have to be mindful of the Aquarius energies, even especially when it comes to me at a low vibrating at a low frequency. I am pulling from Aquarius. So when we talk about the opposition energy, anything that is 180 degrees directly apart. This is polarity. As I said, tug of war. You are trying to balance things out, but like it's balancing out the lesson. It's mirroring energies back to each other, showing you what you're missing. This opposition is definitely a mirroring energy, and if you are vibrating low, you do not want to see this type of opposing energy, right? It's definitely a tug of war, a war when it comes to trying to strike some type of harmony. You must come in balance. Meet in the middle if you have an opposition, or like I said, pull from each side. Learn how to balance out the lesson between the oppositions. Okay, and the next one we have the in conjunct, and we can call it quincunx as well. This is 150 degrees apart. And this here, as I said, well, I didn't say anything yet, but I'm about to say this here pushes and prompts like this uncomfortable growth, in my opinion, or very awkward. It's like your soul is making these adjustments as needed, but it doesn't make sense, or like the planets are not getting each other, or like you don't even know how this happened, but there is some type of development, that has to be had, or adjustment that is needed. It's definitely awkward because the planets are not understanding each other in some type of way, or they don't get along in some type of way, right? They're not seeing eye to eye. Planets have different ways of getting different outcomes, and that's why it's important for us to know which planets we're working with, right? This next one, it's going to be the semisextile, and that is 30 degrees apart. And so the semisextile is a subtle push, in my opinion. It's almost like a slight friction, but there is a potential for growth, right? Because the sextile is the 60 degrees where there are blending energies together very well, but the semisextile can blend as well, um, because at the 30 degree, I do feel like there is some type of position for growth, obviously, because each house is, 30 degree. But you have to be aware of it, if that makes sense. It's like being aware of your growth, or being aware of your potential, if that makes sense, when you have a semi sextile, because there's a slight friction. But if you are aware of this, it's like, it kind of helps you and aids you on your growth, where it doesn't feel um bad at all. Like it just feels like, you leaped into it, if that makes sense, right? And then we're moving on to the semi square. The semi square is 45 degrees apart, and this, in my opinion, creates an environment, or I won't say environment, or it can be an environment that has like mild tension, some type of friction. When we have the semi square, there's some type of nudge that keeps you from staying still. It's some type of nudge. You're like, something is not right and you have to change something, but there is an internal nudge, you know and that's why I say, like, in your environment, because like there's an internal nudge where you're like, something is not right and there must be change, because I don't feel, like I can work with this energy in this type of environment, right? And then we're going to go to uh um the quintile. Okay, and the quintile is going to be 72 degrees apart. And um here is where we can see, and this quintile, you will have to put in like the aspects on these websites, astro-astrology.com and cafe astrology. You actually have to put in quintile when you want to check for this aspect. But this aspect is creative genius. There is an undeveloping or unconventional talent, right? Something that is not developed yet, but is very, very magical when we see the quintile in any type of aspect at 72 degrees. Very magical aspect. If you have this, I would definitely check for this because you are a creative genius. Okay, and the next one where we have a Sussa quadrant, and that is 135 degrees apart. And the Sussa quadrant, from my opinion, it's this inner irritation with the self, with the soul's calling. It's definitely calling for some type of revolution or resolution. Um, it's almost like there's some type of conversation you must have because there's inner irritation. And there is something that you must confront. It's almost like having a freaking splinter in your finger that you must confront when you have the uh, Sussa quadrant. And I do want to talk about this one last one that you will have to put in the aspects as well. Yeah, I'm guessing if you already know you have a grand trine in your natal chart, or you have like a grand square or something like that, grand cross, you already know it. So let's go over the grand trine. So a trine is when we are experiencing, when all elements, whether it's water, they're all working together, right, in a natal chart. And this is when it's called a grand trine. And so they are all 180, 120, excuse me, 120 degrees apart. And what this means is that this is a natural and pure elemental flow, right? Let's say it's a water trine. They have natural talent, the flow, and it's like the deep inner harmony or the soul's gifts is freaking easy, or is feeling or met with ease. And let's say we have a grand water trine. This is deep emotion, intimacy, godly. They're psychic, deeply psychic. They have deeply psychic wisdom. And let's say we have an air trine. This is um, a communicator, people who have ideas that are brilliant mental, awareness. You know what I'm saying? Innovation. Let's say we have our earth trine. This is someone who has complete mastery over the earth realm when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to building up realities. And let's say we have a fire sign trine. Let's just go over all of them. This is a creative spark. A fire trine brings confidence. They are born to inspire because they're full of passion, right? So, be very cautious when it comes to your grand trine, because it's only activated with like actual intention. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, you have to intentionally activate your grand trine by doing things that are um, what your grand trine, is asking you of, right? Let's say if it's a water grand trine, it immediately you would have to get more immersed with psychic and spirituality. Activating your grand trine is very essential, and that's the first thing that I would do if I had a grand trine in my chart. And let's just go over the grand cross, right? So the grand cross or grand square, it's very, very powerful in astrology because these are intense planets. When two planets form, or where four planets form an opposition, or four squares, and this creates a perfect square across the chart. This can be seen as a challenge. This can create a challenge because through growth, there's a lot of friction when we have a grand square. It's a powerful drive once it's mastered. And I do want to say that the gift with the grand square is it gives you the sense of mastery. You know what I'm saying? It's not a curse, it's your cosmic workout plan. It's literally like you working out correctly to get the correct muscles. you know and the grand square and grand trine are, they only come into consciousness when it's activated. When we are lighting our infinite torch, that's when we experience the gift of the grand trine or the grand square. And I do want to stress on the fact that, well, actually, let me just go over the types of grand squares, right? So we have the cardinal grand squares. This is action oriented, pushing you to start something, but following through, can be tough when it comes to the cardinal squares. And the challenge is to follow through when you have the cardinal grand trine, right? Or cardinal grand square. And then when we talk about the fixed grand square, this is you're stubborn. Let's just say that, right? This is you. You're stubborn, but you're so strong. Use your strength to build foundations that are meaningful, to build unshakable foundations, right? And when we have the fixed the fixed grand square, I will say that the challenge is being stubborn. The challenge is not wanting to conform or to fix anything or to be adaptable in that type of way. And so I do think that strength in um character comes, like, strength in character comes before anything else, right? Not even strength in ego, just in character. Building foundations is more important than um a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more important than someone taking a stab at your physical vessel. Like, you're ugly, okay, you know what I'm saying? Let's move on to the next thing and figure out what's serious, because that's not. And so that's why I feel like the fixed trine gets a little bit challenged, is because of the ego. You know what I'm saying? Build an unshakable foundation, that way no one can mess with you, because no one cares about if you're ugly or not, because that's nice. And let's move on to mutable grand square, right? So when we have a mutable grand square, I do think that this is adaptable but very scattered in some type of way. It's almost like you have to learn through constant change, through constant chaos. And it is not always, a negative experience when we're experiencing a mutable grand square, because mutable, they are adaptable, right? They can adapt to change, but always being, somewhat being scattered, like, scattered mind, always looking to find some type of clarity. And I do think that the way that you can find clarity is to learn through the change. Why did you have to change? What are you adapting to? And that's where the challenge comes, understanding what just happened, type of thing. And so, yes, that's all I have for the major aspects. That's all I have for the aspects and major and minor in astrology. So I hope that was helpful. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, please. And if you found this helpful, try to send it to someone else and maybe they can find it useful or helpful as well. I am definitely trying to spread the wisdom on self development, self enlightenment. That is the most important thing that we can learn in life, self mastery. So let's spread the awareness. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.